What if I told you that sometimes the most powerful way to make someone miss you is by doing absolutely nothing? Yes, you heard that right. You don't have to chase, you don't have to convince, and you definitely don't have to plead. In fact, the secret to making a woman miss you often lies in something much more subtle, much more powerful: your absence. In today's video, we're diving deep into some strange yet profoundly effective tactics that make a woman think about you long after you've left the room. These techniques aren't just based on modern psychology, but also draw heavily from the ancient wisdom of Stoicism, a philosophy that teaches control over one's emotions, restraint, and the power of minimalism. Stoics understood the importance of detachment and how it can create a lasting impact, and that's exactly what we're going to explore today. By the end of this video, you'll have a much deeper understanding of why women often miss you the most when you master these counterintuitive moves. So if you've ever wondered how to leave a lasting impression without saying a word, stick around. These strategies will change how you think about attraction. Before we get started, if you're enjoying this kind of content, be sure to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell so you never miss out on future insights. Now, let's get started. Number 1. The phantom presence. Vanishing without explanation. Let's start with the idea of becoming a phantom presence. What does that mean? Being a phantom presence is about walking that fine line where you're still in her life, but not fully there. You're close enough to make a mark on her mind, but distant enough that when you're not around, she can't help but feel your absence. Think of it like being the quiet echo in the background, present enough to leave her wondering, but just out of reach, making her desire to know more. This taps directly into a Stoic principle: detachment. The Stoics believed in letting go of things beyond our control, focusing instead on maintaining inner peace and self-mastery. When you vanish without explanation, you're practicing this principle in a subtle yet impactful way. You're not relying on constant interaction or validation from her. You're content in your own space, detached from the need to always be available. This calm, confident detachment is incredibly attractive because it signals that you're not desperate for attention or approval. Now, let's picture this scenario in action. Imagine you've been having regular conversations with her, messaging frequently, maybe even seeing each other here and there. Everything feels consistent. But then, without any warning or explanation, you go quiet. Maybe it's over a weekend, or during a time when she's used to hearing from you. You don't send a "good morning" text. You don't check in to see how her day is going. You simply stop. No explanation, no excuses, just silence. What happens next is key. She'll notice the change, maybe even immediately. And in that absence, her mind will begin to work overtime. Why hasn't he messaged me? Is he busy? Did I do something wrong? What's he up to? The more she thinks about you, the more she'll start to miss you. And it's in those moments of absence that attraction often deepens, because you've created a gap that she naturally wants to fill. This approach works because of the way our minds are wired. When there's an unresolved question or an unexpected change, we can't help but focus on it. In this case, your sudden disappearance becomes the puzzle she feels the need to solve. This makes you stand out even more as someone who doesn't need to constantly seek her attention. You're showing her that you're independent, comfortable with silence, and that you're not afraid to step back, qualities that are both rare and valuable. By practicing this kind of detachment, you also stay grounded within yourself. You're not vanishing out of manipulation or insecurity. You're doing it from a place of strength, knowing that true attraction doesn't come from overexposure. The beauty of this strategy is that it allows her to come to terms with her own feelings. She gets the chance to miss you, to think about you, and to realize that your presence in her life is something she values. And when you eventually reappear, it feels like a breath of fresh air, a reunion she's been craving without even realizing it. This is the quiet power of becoming a phantom presence. It's not about disappearing entirely, but about stepping back in a way that lets her feel your absence and, in turn, appreciate your presence even more when you return. So, next time you feel the urge to constantly stay in touch, remember this. Sometimes, vanishing for a little while can make a bigger impact than always being there. It's about creating space, allowing mystery to build, and practicing the art of detachment that the Stoics mastered centuries ago. In that space, she'll find herself drawn to you, and that's when she'll truly start to miss your presence. Number 2, the unread message, leaving conversations unfinished. Now, I want you to think about how most of us are wired. We crave closure. It's human nature to want to finish what we start, especially in our interactions with others. When a conversation suddenly stops or remains unresolved, it leaves this lingering feeling, a kind of mental itch. And for women who often place a strong emphasis on emotional connection and communication, this effect can be even more pronounced. Imagine this scenario. You're texting her, and the conversation is going smoothly. Maybe it's gotten a little flirty. Maybe it's deep and meaningful. The connection feels natural. At this point, the usual tendency might be to keep it going, to continue engaging and building on that energy. But here's where a powerful shift can happen, when you choose to leave things unfinished. By doing so, you create a sense of mystery and intrigue that keeps her mind coming back to you. It's as if you've pressed pause on a song right before the best part. She's waiting for that next note, but instead, you leave her wondering. This is where the ancient wisdom of Stoicism comes into play. The Stoics understood the profound power of restraint, knowing when to hold back, and the strength that comes from silence. They believed that not every thought or feeling needed to be expressed, and that sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is say nothing at all. In your case, by leaving a conversation unfinished, you're not neglecting her or being unresponsive. You're creating space, allowing curiosity to take root in her mind. Picture this. You're mid-conversation, maybe even having a light-hearted exchange. Instead of pushing the conversation further or rushing to say something clever, you stop. You leave her message unread for a little while or respond a few hours later. When done with the right intention, this isn't about ignoring her. It's about strategically pausing the interaction. It's about allowing her to feel that emotional gap where she expected immediate attention. What happens next is where the true magic lies. Her mind begins to wonder why the conversation stopped so abruptly. She replays your words, analyzing what you said, trying to fill in the blanks. That's when she starts to think about you more than she anticipated. You're no longer just another person she's chatting with. You've created an emotional tension that keeps her engaged, even in your absence. This is the moment she begins to miss you, wondering what you're doing and why you suddenly became distant. This approach taps into a fundamental aspect of attraction, the power of anticipation. By leaving something unresolved, you're allowing her to anticipate your next move, to be curious about what comes next. And this emotional space, when created intentionally, often leads to a stronger desire for connection. Remember, this isn't about playing games or being manipulative. It's about understanding the rhythm of communication and knowing when to hold back. Just like the Stoics taught, sometimes the greatest strength lies in what we don't say or do. By practicing restraint, you're not just controlling the conversation. You're allowing her to invest emotionally, and that's when real attraction begins to grow. So, the next time you find yourself in a great conversation, resist the urge to tie everything up neatly. Let her wonder. Let her think about what's left unsaid. You'll find that in those moments of silence, her mind will linger on you, and she'll start to miss your presence more than you might expect. Before we move on to the next point, take a moment to stop and consider this. How often do you find yourself compelled to keep a conversation going, eager to fill in the silence? Now, imagine the power that could come from stepping back, from intentionally leaving things unfinished. What would happen if you gave someone the space to think about you without constantly being present? Leave a comment below and share your thoughts on this. Or simply type, "Silence creates connection." Let's uncover the next insight together. Number 3. The mirror trick. Reflecting her desire back at her. This is where we enter a more fascinating dynamic, one that has the power to shift the way she sees you, and more importantly, how much she thinks about you. Imagine this. You become a mirror for her emotions and energy. Whatever vibe she's putting out there, you reflect it back to her. But here's the catch. You do so without fully revealing your own desires. It's a subtle art, but when done right, it's incredibly effective. It leaves her intrigued, curious, and wondering about you. Why does this work so well? It taps into something deeply psychological. When someone feels like they can't completely figure you out, their curiosity spikes. Think about it. We're all naturally drawn to mystery. The unknown holds a kind of power over us. So, when a woman can't quite get a read on how much she's affecting you, it plants a seed in her mind. She'll start asking herself, "What's going on here? Why isn't he reacting like everyone else? How does he really feel about me?" And this uncertainty, it's like fuel to the fire. It keeps you on her mind, even when you're not around. The more she thinks about you, the more intrigued she becomes. And that's where desire starts to build. Now, let's bring in a Stoic principle to elevate this even further. The ancient Stoics had a concept called apatheia, which translates to emotional invulnerability. But let's be clear. This doesn't mean shutting off your feelings or becoming cold. It's about mastering your emotions so that you aren't ruled by them. When you can control your reactions, whether it's in a high-pressure situation or even something as subtle as a flirtatious conversation, you maintain power over yourself and, in turn, the dynamic with her. Here's how this plays out in real life. For example, she's playfully flirting with you, expecting you to dive right in with the same playful banter. That's what most people do, right? They respond immediately, matching energy for energy. But instead, you smile calmly, maybe give her a subtle nod, but you don't go all in. You acknowledge her flirtation, but you hold something back. This isn't about playing games. It's about showing that you're not so easily swayed. Think about what happens next. That moment of restraint leaves her with questions. Wait, did I get his attention? Is he into me? What do I need to do to really get a reaction out of him? And in that moment of wondering, she starts to think about you more. You become someone who isn't easily read, and that's incredibly intriguing. She'll replay the interaction in her mind, trying to figure out where she stands with you. And that uncertainty makes her miss you. She'll want to crack the code, to understand what makes you tick. This is where the mirror effect comes into play. You're reflecting her energy back to her, but you're not giving everything away. There's a part of you that remains just out of reach, and that's what draws her in even more. You become a puzzle, something she can't quite figure out, and human nature drives us to solve puzzles, especially when it comes to emotions. This isn't about playing hard to get. It's about maintaining your emotional center. When you do that, you're not just reflecting her energy. You're amplifying it by not giving her the full picture. She'll find herself thinking about you more and more, trying to understand what she needs to do to capture your attention fully. In the end, the mirror trick isn't just a strategy. It's a mindset. It's about staying in control of your emotions, not being swayed by outside forces, and letting her wonder what's really going on beneath the surface. That's where attraction grows, in that space of uncertainty and intrigue. Keep her guessing, keep her curious, and before long, she'll be the one making the moves to win you over. Number 4, mastering emotional silence, the power of not reacting. It may feel unnatural at first, but one of the most effective ways to make a woman miss you is by choosing not to react to every emotional cue she throws at you. Instead of constantly reacting, you create an emotional gap, a space that she subconsciously fills with thoughts of you. In relationships, we often seek validation through reactions, whether it's joy, excitement, or even frustration. But by holding back, by maintaining emotional composure when it's least expected, you establish a dynamic that draws her in. Here's why this works. When you don't react to her emotional highs and lows, it creates a kind of emotional mystery. We're all wired to seek reactions, especially in the context of love and relationships. We want to know that the person we care about feels something, whether it's excitement, sympathy, or concern. But when you keep your cool, when you remain calm and centered, no matter what she says or does, it catches her off guard in a way that keeps her thinking about you. Suddenly, she's left wondering, why isn't he reacting? Or why is he so composed? That emotional silence can become incredibly powerful. This concept ties perfectly into the Stoic philosophy of emotional control. The Stoics believed that while we can't control what happens to us, we are always in control of how we choose to respond. They emphasize the idea that we should not let external events dictate our internal state. In fact, often the wisest thing we can do is not react at all. Stoicism teaches that inner peace and emotional balance are not just for our own well-being, but they also create a powerful presence that others are naturally drawn to. Imagine this scenario. She tells you something dramatic. Maybe she's venting about a stressful day or sharing something that's bothering her. Most people might jump in with an emotional response, offering solutions, sympathizing, or even getting worked up alongside her. But you, instead, listen carefully, acknowledging her feelings without letting them disrupt your own emotional state. You don't dive into the drama. You don't react with intensity. You stay composed. What happens next is profound. She begins to notice your calm, unshakable demeanor, and it stands out from how others would typically respond. This emotional silence leaves her thinking about you long after the conversation ends. She wonders why you're so composed, why you didn't feed into the emotional storm. And here's the key. That calmness becomes something she starts to crave. She misses the grounded energy you bring. She realizes that in a world where so many people overreact or get easily flustered, your steadiness is refreshing, even attractive. It's something she can rely on, something that separates you from others who would have jumped into the emotional chaos without thinking. And here's where the real power lies. When she's not around you, she starts to miss that emotional stability. She starts to realize how rare it is to be with someone who doesn't get swept up by emotions, who can remain present and calm in any situation. That emotional silence you practice has now turned into a powerful force of attraction. She begins to associate you with peace, security, and self-assurance. In contrast to the emotional ups and downs she might experience elsewhere, your composed energy is something she longs for. This emotional balance is what sets you apart. It makes her think about you when you're not there, wondering how you can remain so composed while others might crumble. It's not just about making her miss you. It's about cultivating a deeper sense of respect and attraction through your emotional intelligence and composure. That's the true power of mastering emotional silence. Now that we've explored the power of emotional silence and its impact on relationships, I encourage you to take a moment and reflect on how you've navigated similar situations. Have you experienced the benefits of emotional composure, or are you still working towards mastering it? Leave a comment below sharing your thoughts, or if you're looking for a simple place to start, just type, "Less is more." Your insights could inspire others to embark on their own journey towards emotional control and self-assurance. Let's keep watching. Number 5. The disappearing act, leaving at the height of connection. The idea here is to step away just when the connection is at its absolute strongest. Think about it. Most people tend to stick around until the energy fizzles out, the moment fades, and things naturally start winding down. But if you leave when everything feels electrifying, when she's fully engaged, that's when you make your biggest impact. It's a psychological move, creating an impression that lingers long after you've gone. And here's where Stoicism comes into play. The philosophy of Stoicism encourages us to practice restraint, to avoid overindulgence in pleasures, even when we're tempted to stay in the moment longer. By stepping away at the height of connection, you're actually creating something deeper, a sense of incompletion that triggers desire. Picture this. You're having an amazing date. The chemistry is undeniable. The conversation flows effortlessly, and she's clearly enjoying every moment. But instead of dragging the night on, you make the choice to leave earlier than she expected, right when everything is at its peak. You're not abandoning her. You're simply timing your exit perfectly. By doing so, you leave her with a lingering feeling, wondering when she'll see you again. That little bit of unfinished business creates a sense of longing. Why does this work so well? Because leaving at the height of connection plants a seed of curiosity and anticipation. She'll replay those moments in her mind, thinking about how great things were, and that's exactly when she'll start missing you the most. It's not about playing games. It's about understanding human psychology. People crave what they can't have in the moment, and by stepping back at the right time, you're allowing her to feel that sense of incompletion, making her desire for you grow stronger. So, instead of staying until the energy starts to fade, take control of the moment. Leave her wanting more, and she'll be eagerly awaiting the next time she can be around you. This tactic, when used with intention and respect, creates a powerful dynamic, and she'll feel the magnetic pull of your absence, longing to reconnect. Number 6. The unspoken gesture, speaking without words. In the realm of connection and attraction, words are often overrated. What if I told you that it's not what you say, but rather what you don't say, that can truly capture someone's attention? Think about those moments in life where a simple glance, a lingering smile, or a light touch spoke volumes. These unspoken gestures are powerful. They communicate feelings, intentions, and emotions in ways that words often fall short of doing. And here's the secret. It's these small, quiet moments that can make a woman think about you long after you've parted ways. Women tend to remember how a moment made them feel, not necessarily the specific words that were spoken. This is where the power of subtlety comes in. When you master the art of saying less and doing more with your presence, you create an emotional imprint that lingers in her mind. It's not the grand gestures or the perfectly crafted sentences that she'll be replaying later. It's the feeling of connection you created through your unspoken actions. A lingering look, a soft brush of your hand, the way you hold her gaze for just a beat longer than usual. These things stir something deeper. This idea of simplicity and subtlety is something the Stoics understood well. They believed in the power of action over words, in showing rather than telling. In fact, Marcus Aurelius, one of the most famous Stoic philosophers, often wrote about how action speaks for itself. The Stoics valued what was genuine and understated, believing that sometimes the smallest actions can carry the most weight. In the same way, when it comes to attraction, the unspoken gestures you make can resonate more deeply than any speech or compliment. A silent connection, a shared glance, can stir emotions that words can't quite reach. Imagine this scenario. You're talking with her, engaged in conversation, and you catch her eye. You hold her gaze, not for too long, but just long enough for a spark of connection to pass between you. In that brief moment, no words are exchanged, but a powerful sense of understanding is. Maybe you offer a small smile, or just allow the silence to settle between you. Comfortable and meaningful. You've created a moment that she won't soon forget. And when you leave, she's not going to be thinking about the words you said. Instead, she'll be replaying that silent, intimate connection. The way you made her feel seen without saying a word. It's these unspoken moments that often stay with people. They leave room for imagination, for curiosity, and for emotion to grow. And that's when she starts to miss you. Because what's left unsaid invites her to fill in the blanks, to wonder about the connection she felt, and to want more of it. The beauty of subtlety is that it lingers in the mind far longer than any verbal exchange. By embracing these unspoken gestures, you tap into something deeper. You become someone she thinks about, not because of what you said, but because of how you made her feel. You create a space where attraction isn't just about words. It's about the moments that spoke louder than words ever could. In relationships and attraction, remember, less is often more. Speak without words and let your actions, those subtle, thoughtful gestures, do the talking. The Stoics knew that true influence comes from what is felt, not always what is heard. By mastering this, you create lasting impressions, leaving her with a desire to experience more of those quiet, powerful moments with you. If you've made it this far, you're already tapping into a deeper understanding of connection and attraction. Now, take a moment to hit the like button if this resonated with you, and share your thoughts in the comments below. How do you use unspoken gestures in your own interactions? Your insights might just inspire someone else, so don't hesitate to add to the conversation. Now, let's explore the next chapter of this story together. Number 7. Unpredictability in routine. Breaking patterns. If you're truly looking to make a lasting impact and leave a woman wanting more, one of the most effective strategies is to break her expectations. We are all creatures of habit. Women, like anyone else, become accustomed to certain patterns of behavior over time. But when you suddenly shift from the expected, you spark curiosity and intrigue, creating a feeling of unpredictability that's both exciting and mysterious. Think about it. When things always go the same way, they start to feel routine, even dull. This is where the Stoic principle of embracing change comes into play. Stoicism teaches us that nothing in life remains the same. Change is the only constant. By applying this mindset to your relationships, you can avoid becoming predictable and, instead, keep things fresh and engaging. Let's say you've been texting her consistently every day for a week. She's become used to seeing your messages pop up, and while she might enjoy the attention, it's become something she expects. But what happens when, out of nowhere, you don't text her for a day or two? That shift in routine breaks the pattern she's come to rely on. She'll notice the absence, and suddenly, instead of feeling comfortable, she's left wondering, why haven't I heard from him? This tiny change in behavior can have a powerful effect. It creates a sense of anticipation, making her wonder if something has shifted in your dynamic. Is it something she did? Are you busy? Or have you simply moved on to something else? Whatever the reason she comes up with, the fact is, you're occupying her thoughts more than before. That subtle break in communication can make her think about you far more than when you were texting her every day like clockwork. By breaking the routine, you not only introduce an element of unpredictability, but also embody the Stoic practice of detachment. You're showing that while you enjoy her company, you're not completely dependent on her presence or attention. This sense of self-assurance is something that naturally draws people in, making them appreciate the moments they share with you even more. So remember, unpredictability doesn't mean playing games. It means understanding the value of change. When used wisely, breaking the routine can create a deeper connection, one where you're missed more than ever before. Keep her on her toes, and let the space you create work to your advantage. Number 8. The power of reclusive mystery, leaving her wondering. We all know that people are naturally drawn to what they don't fully understand, and when it comes to relationships, this is especially true. When you don't reveal everything about yourself right away, you give her something to think about. Curiosity is one of the strongest forces of attraction. When a woman can't quite figure you out, her mind begins to fill in the gaps, keeping you on her radar long after the conversation ends. Let's say you've just started getting to know her, and she's trying to get a sense of who you are. She asks you something casual, like how your weekend was. Now, the common response would be to give her a detailed breakdown of everything you did, where you went, who you saw, what you ate. But instead of following the usual script, you take a different approach. You smile and say, "It was pretty interesting. Maybe I'll tell you about it sometime." Just like that, you've created an opening for her curiosity to grow. She's left wondering, what was so interesting? Why didn't he tell me more? The Stoics were masters of minimalism, not just in their lifestyles, but in the way they communicated. They believed in speaking only when necessary, sharing what was important, and avoiding the tendency to overshare. They knew the value of restraint and how powerful it could be to keep some things to themselves. By applying this same principle, you create a sense of mystery in your interactions, which makes her more invested in learning about you. When you leave certain details out or save them for later, you're not being evasive. You're being intentional. By not revealing everything right away, you keep things fresh, interesting, and unpredictable. And this unpredictability creates a magnetic pull. She'll find herself thinking about you more, wondering what you're not telling her, and anticipating the next time she gets to learn a little more about who you are. It's important to strike the right balance, though. You don't want to be so vague or distant that it comes across as disinterest. The key is to give her just enough to spark curiosity while leaving room for her to want more. For instance, When she asks about your plans or thoughts on something, share a little insight, but leave the full story for another time. "I've been thinking about something interesting lately, but we can talk about it later," you might say. This keeps the conversation dynamic, making her eager to hear what's next. Over time, this sense of mystery becomes part of your allure. She'll start associating you with the feeling of wanting more, of discovering new layers each time she talks to you. It's a strategy that works because it's rooted in natural human psychology. We're all drawn to what we can't fully grasp. The Stoics knew that wisdom often comes from knowing when to speak and when to remain silent. In relationships, this idea translates into knowing when to reveal more about yourself and when to hold back, allowing the intrigue to build over time. When you leave her wondering, you're not only maintaining her interest, but you're also creating a deeper emotional connection. She's engaged, curious, and thinking about you even when you're not around. So, harness the power of reclusive mystery. Leave her wondering. Let her mind wander, filling in the blanks. And soon enough, she'll be eager to discover what makes you tick. It's one of the simplest yet most profound ways to create lasting attraction. Now, I encourage you to take a moment and reflect on the power of mystery in your own interactions. Have you ever found yourself more intrigued by someone because they didn't reveal everything right away? Consider how that sense of curiosity played a role in keeping your interest. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so feel free to leave a comment below. Number 9. The inevitable return. Absence makes presence more powerful. Let's dive deeper into something that most people overlook: the art of your return. After all the subtle disappearances, the unfinished conversations that leave her wondering, and those moments where you purposefully fade into the background, something shifts when you reappear. When you return, your presence isn't just felt, it's magnified. What's happening here isn't just about being missed, it's about creating an undeniable pull that makes your presence even more valuable. Think about it like this. When something is always within reach, we often take it for granted. But once it's gone, that's when we start to feel its true value. This principle, echoed in Stoic philosophy, teaches us that life is built on contrasts: pleasure and pain, abundance and scarcity, presence and absence. The Stoics believe that to truly appreciate something, you have to experience its absence. By creating space, you allow her to feel the void, to experience life without you. And that's where the magic begins. She doesn't just miss you. She realizes how important your presence is in her life. So what happens when you come back? You return, but not as the same person. In your absence, you've taken time to ground yourself, to build your confidence, and to strengthen your sense of purpose. You've been intentional about your distance, whether by texting less or not being as readily available. And in that space, she's had time to reflect, to recognize what's missing, and to experience a subtle craving for your presence. You're no longer just someone she's interested in. You're someone she's actively thinking about, someone she can't ignore. When you re-enter the picture, your presence is amplified. The interactions you have with her feel richer, more significant. She pays closer attention to what you say, to how you move. You've shifted the dynamics. Suddenly, she's not just waiting for your text. She's eager to know when you'll reach out again. That's the power of creating absence. It's not about playing games. It's about understanding the natural rhythm of human connection. Absence allows for reflection, and reflection deepens desire. What's key here is that when you return, you do so from a place of strength. You come back with your energy recharged, your intentions clear. It's not about being distant for the sake of distance. It's about giving her the opportunity to realize just how much she values you. And when you reappear, it's not a simple return. It feels like a reward. She's not just happy to see you. She's thrilled by the fact that you're back in her world. Now you'll notice the shift in her behavior. She's not just passively responding anymore. She's actively engaging with you. She's not just interested, she's invested. Her attention, her focus, her desire, it's all aimed in your direction. This is the power of strategic absence. By pulling away, you've created space for her to reflect and appreciate. And when you return, you've solidified your value in her eyes. In relationships, just like in life, balance is key. The highs and lows, the moments of closeness and distance, they all work together to create something more meaningful. When you return after creating space, you don't just come back. You come back with more presence, more power, and more connection. And that's when she's hooked. As we wrap up today's video, let's reflect on the powerful yet subtle art of presence and absence in shaping how someone feels about you. We explored some intriguing techniques rooted in both modern psychology and the ancient wisdom of Stoicism, highlighting the importance of emotional restraint and the strategic use of absence to deepen attraction. These methods aren't just about creating a momentary feeling of missing someone, but about fostering a profound and lasting impact. If today's insights resonated with you, I encourage you to like this video and subscribe to our channel for more profound relationship dynamics and Stoic philosophy. Your engagement helps us reach and help more people just like you. Do you have thoughts or experiences with the power of absence in your relationships? Share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget, there are more videos on screen now that dive deeper into similar topics. Click on them to continue exploring ways to enhance your personal and relational growth. Each video is crafted to help you navigate the complex yet rewarding world of relationships with wisdom and insight. Thank you for watching. And remember, sometimes the most significant presence comes from knowing when to be absent.